The Lakers locker room is a ticking time bomb, folks. We are talking about a literal face-to-face showdown between LeBron's right-hand man Rich Paul and the camps for Luka Dončić and Austin Reaves. And the spark that lit the fuse, some reckless chatter from Paul hinting that one or both of them needs to be shipped out of town immediately.
Either of them or both.
I were the Lakers, I would give serious consideration to moving Luka. I can get Luka and Austin are redundant.
I'm fine either way.
But listen, that little soundbite was just the beginning. It ignited a massive blow-up. It got so heated that bodies had to physically get in between them. And he didn't just shut up after that. No, Paul goes on a scorched earth media tour, trashing Luka and Austin while building a fortress around King James. I am pulling back the curtain on this mess. You need the real story on why this ego trip might torch LeBron's swan song in the league. Listen to me closely. This situation, it is freakishly abnormal. You do not see this in the NBA. Agents do not do this. Especially not when a franchise should be hunting championships, not fighting off tabloid scandals. Agents are supposed to be ghosts, man. You are not supposed to know who they are. If you recognize an agent's voice on a podcast, the system is broken. Their whole gig is moving in the shadows, shielding the talent and keeping the noise down. Real power moves in silence. Let the buckets do the talking. Take a guy like Jeff Schwartz. He reps the MVP Nikola Jokic and half the league's heavy hitters. You never catch him on a mic playing fantasy GM or throwing dirt on his client's own teammates. It is not because he does not have thoughts. It is because he knows his paycheck depends on keeping the locker room stable, not blowing it up. Rich Paul. He is the anti-agent, always chasing a camera, dropping hot, takes nobody asked for, and running his mouth about guys who do not even pay him. We are talking about guys suiting up next to his number one client. Guys whose vibe directly impacts whether the Lakers win or lose. The whole setup was already a powder keg waiting for a match. But when the reports dropped about a literal face-off on the hardwood, that is when this stopped being gossip and became a crisis. Just pause and wrap your head around the insanity here. You have an agent openly scouting teammates painting Dončić and Reaves as the villains, all while conveniently ignoring his golden goose LeBron. Rich Paul is running around like a shadow general manager with zero accountability. He is basically LeBron's bulletproof vest, deflecting all the shrapnel onto the other guys so the king stays spotless. Even a shark like Leon Rose before he took over the Knicks knew how to move in silence. He went to war for his guys, sure, but he didn't do it by engaging in arson with the press and letting the team choke on the smoke. That is how the game is supposed to be played. Legit agents know the code. You start bad-mouthing your client's teammates in public. You cross a line you can never uncross. That is why this is so twisted. This wasn't a slip of the tongue or a hot mic moment. This is a guy flexing power because he knows he is untouchable. He says what others fear to think because he has the ultimate cosign. And that arrogance, it does not just come from running Klutch Sports. It comes from a well-oiled propaganda machine that has been manipulating the storylines for a decade. The playbook is simple. LeBron keeps his hands clean, Paul drops the bomb, and the media runs with the debris. Once you spot the pattern, you have to ask the obvious. Where does he get the nerve to pull this off? Why is he yapping on podcasts while the Lakers are in free fall, acting like he owns the franchise? All roads lead back to one man, LeBron. Let's be real about Bron. The guy has spent 20 years perfecting the art of being Teflon. Nothing sticks to him. Team tanks, not his fault. Team wins, he is the savior. That isn't luck, folks. That is by design. You won't catch LeBron on a mic torching his squad or demanding trades out loud. He has to maintain that pristine, I am just a leader brand. But Rich Paul, he is the attack dog. He creates the chaos. He can say the dirty stuff while LeBron smiles for the camera. The crazy part is the whole league is watching this charade and starting to whisper. Look at the Austin Reaves drama. Even Skip Bayless called it out. He tweeted that Paul is out here practically begging the Lakers to swap Reaves for Jaren Jackson Jr. And then the claim is, oh, that is just Rich's opinion. LeBron had nothing to do with it. Give me a break. We are not stupid. We know the hustle. LeBron plays innocent. Paul plants the seeds. The press runs with it, and suddenly the trade machine is buzzing without LeBron getting his hands dirty. And this happens over and over. Check the timestamps. It is suspicious as hell. The second the Lakers hit a skid, Rich Paul pops up everywhere spinning the story. And the one guy who never takes the heat, LeBron. Every single time. Which is pretty rich when you realize the Lakers have actually been stacking up losses ever since LeBron came back to the lineup. Honestly, let's look at the hard data. The Lakers' defense falls off a cliff the second LeBron steps onto the floor this season, with LeBron playing their defensive rating balloons to around 119.3. But when he sits, it tightens up to 116.8. That is a swing of 2.5 points per 100 possessions. In the NBA, that is the difference between a lottery team defense and a playoff caliber squad. But wait, it gets worse. They are literally winning more games without him. The Lakers have gone 11-5 with him on the bench compared to a mediocre 8-5 when he plays. You would think the problem is staring everyone in the face. But nope. Why on earth would he hit the podcast circuit again, and this time not just throw Reaves or Luka under the bus? He torched the entire roster claiming they are not even real contenders.
Like, I personally don't think the Lakers are good enough to be contenders right now. Not right now.
When you say contenders, what do you mean?
I don't think they have enough to get to the Western Conference final.
This is next-level delusion. Why is everyone else the scapegoat except the 41-year-old who refuses to hang it up while he drags the team down? At the end of the day, Rich Paul is playing a game no other agent in the league would dare touch. He is weaponizing LeBron's image, his brand, and his legacy using the media to spin narratives and protect the king at all costs. And the best part, LeBron keeps his hands clean and doesn't have to say a word. Then came the bomb. On one of these shows, Paul dropped a quote that sent shockwaves through the entire NBA. It wasn't just the words, it was the target and the tone. He looked the camera in the eye and said, Luka does not play defense. He didn't mince words. He didn't say Luka needs to improve. He didn't say Luka is inconsistent. He framed it as a fatal flaw right while Luka is carrying the offense on his back with elite playmaking and scoring. Remember what I said earlier about the timing of these hits? He didn't stop there. He went even further and praised Anthony Davis, the guy they shipped out to get Luka, calling him the real championship piece. Let that marinate for a second. That is not just a prop for AD. That is a direct shot at Luka, basically saying, you are the problem, buddy. And the irony, it is hilarious. Paul started hyping up Nico Harrison, the GM, who pulled the trigger on that trade, acting like he is a genius. He talked about Harrison's defense wins championships mantra like it was some 4D chess move that justified trading a generational talent like Luka. Here's the kicker. Harrison got fired just a couple of months ago because the Mavs front office realized they completely blew it with that trade. It gets messier. The Mavericks are falling apart without Luka. They are rotting in the bottom half of the West, desperate to save their season after dumping the league's most dynamic offensive weapon. Meanwhile, Luka is putting up 37 points, 9 assists, and nearly 8 boards a game for the Lakers. He is a certified superstar, but Paul decided to die on this defense hill. He is trying to rewrite history, acting like AD is still the defensive god while the Mavs get cooked on defense with him. Rich Paul is cherry-picking stats to assassinate Luka's character, and it is terrifying how effective he is at shaping the narrative. This isn't personal beef, it is a calculated hit job. By pinning the defensive woes on Luka and hyping AD, Paul is signaling to the league and free agents that the Lakers' future is shaky, all while LeBron stays bulletproof. This is masterclass gaslighting happening in real time. You stack all that up and of course the locker room is a powder keg. And if you think it ended with a podcast soundbite, please. That was just the setup. He wasn't just aiming at Luka. It boiled over into a full-blown confrontation on the court. January 14th, halftime. Lakers versus Hawks. The energy in the arena was toxic. You could cut the tension on the Lakers bench with a knife. Why? Because after trashing Luka, this guy went on another mic and said that if he were in charge, he would call Memphis and ship Austin Reaves out for Jaren Jackson Jr.
If I was the Lakers, I would probably be targeting the Memphis Grizzlies as a trade partner.
For
Jaren Jackson.
Yeah, that'd be a great fit.
I would.
For whom?
You could say, let me withhold that, but this comes with
Austin Reaves.
This comes with a very unemotional attachment.
Let that sink in. Reaves is busting his tail next to LeBron, and he gets put on the trading block by an agent who doesn't even represent him. If you think that is just idle chatter, wake up. In the NBA, that is a public slap in the face. And he was just getting started. On a separate episode, Paul doubled down, basically hinting that Austin needs to shut up, accept a benchwarmer role, and let the designated stars like LeBron hog the glory.
LeBron get the spotlight.
Really, Austin Reaves, and who knows what happens by the playoffs, is Ginobili, right? In an ideal world,
On a championship team,
he's the killer sixth man, right?
Yeah.
On the Spurs, he'd be the sixth man, right? Especially back in the day.
The Spurs made that decision, and you know what Ginobili did? He embraced it.
Right.
And how many championships they win? 5.
Yeah.
It's those type of decisions to be made.
You don't need a press pass to smell the disrespect on that one. Even the beat writers and talking heads called foul immediately. They labeled it for what it was, cheap, unprofessional, and the exact kind of poison that detonates a locker room if you let it fester.
I think that's unfair to Austin.
Yeah.
I think this kid has shown that he can be, a go-to guy on a winning team. He's improved every single season.
You have to get why this is nuclear. Austin Reaves isn't some TikTok hype beast chasing clout. This is a guy who clawed his way into the league. Undrafted, no safety net, no red carpet. He had to grind for every scrap, unlike Lee Flop. And here's the thing, he didn't just show up. He balled out when the lights were brightest. He delivered in the playoffs inside the pressure cooker, where every single possession is life or death, and the critics are ruthless. Then he signs this incredibly team-friendly deal, basically gifting the Lakers the cap space. To make moves which wake up people is something you expect from a ring-chasing vet, not a guy who was undrafted. Contrast that with LeBron, who had the red carpet rolled out since he was in diapers. The man was practically crowned king of the NBA before he even finished homeroom with the whole system rigged in his favor. So Reaves getting heated wasn't ego. It was about self-respect and protecting what he built from scratch. Beyond the numbers, he is the guy commanding the locker room. They call him the glue guy, the one the squad trusts to keep the energy right and hold everybody accountable.
With his growth and the way he's continuing to improve and the trajectory that he's on right now, I have to disagree. I think he's earned the right to be a starter. I think he's a household name at this point in his career, and I think he'll only continue to get better.
You cannot look a man like that in the eye and call him a bench warmer without starting a war. And since Austin isn't part of the Klutch Sports Mafia, it is painfully obvious why Rich Paul feels safe taking shots at him in public. So you take all that tension and then you toss these targeted insults into the mix. By halftime of that Hawks game, Reggie Barry, Austin's agent, decided he was done playing nice and got right in Paul's face at half court. Witnesses in the arena said it got so ugly behind the scenes that security had to physically jump in and pull them apart. By the time the buzzer sounded, one thing was crystal clear. Rich Paul's little stories weren't just hot takes anymore. They were a direct attack on player morale and team unity. This is exactly why Luka and Reaves' camps were bound to snap. If you rewind the tape, this whole blow-up was just the spark on a powder keg that was already waiting to explode. With Luka, even before Rich Paul made that weird crack about his defense, there was already a target painted on his back about that exact issue. Analysts, commentators, even big names like Zach Lowe have been taking wild swings at Luka's defense, which is basically the price of admission for every offensive god, because the entire opposing roster is headhunting you. And yeah, sure, that narrative has trailed him like a bad smell. One analytics report from the last playoffs showed teams were relentlessly targeting Luka, with Jaden McDaniels putting up a 68.8% effective field goal percentage when Luka was guarding him. Critics weaponized that data to tear him down, ignoring that he is an offensive wizard who actually does the grunt work most superstars refuse to touch. But the sickest part, this attack came from LeBron's inner circle, which means it was a calculated hit. That is toxic. And honestly, Luka has actually been getting props for his defense lately, proving he is putting in the work. But when that same tired narrative gets weaponized by the guy representing the so-called team captain, wow. Now let's pivot back to Austin Reaves. He isn't some golden boy who walked in on a silver platter. He went undrafted in 2021, fought for his life for a roster spot, and turned himself into a stone-cold starter. The dude literally came from nothing to dropping 20-plus points a night in the 2024 to 2025 season, starting almost every game and becoming one of the most efficient snipers in the league. He is the definition of hustle. Now, picture some suit telling the world you belong on the bench or in a trade package after you literally carved out your spot with blood, sweat, and clutch buckets. It's not like Reaves was a scrub. He was putting up borderline all-star numbers last season. Fans, analysts, even the Lakers coach J.J. Redick have said he deserves all-star consideration for how much he has carried this team. But the real kicker here is that none of this drama was an accident. If you really want to crack the code on how Bron and Rich Paul have been gaming the system for over 20 years, you have to look at the monster they built from scratch. We're talking about the meteoric ascent of Rich Paul, the sheer grip of LeBron's inner circle, and how they've been pulling the NBA's strings from the shadows. And this is where the story goes off the rails. You honestly think Rich Paul just stumbled into being the biggest power broker in basketball? Please. Imagine some kid in Cleveland pushing throwback jerseys out of his trunk, grinding for every cent who just happens to bump into LeBron James back in 2002. LeBron was only 17 but already a superstar, and Paul didn't just see a meal ticket, he saw a golden opening. He wasn't looking to just carry LeBron's bags, he wanted to be the guy holding the keys. That one meeting was the spark that would eventually burn down the old NBA hierarchy. Skip ahead a bit, Paul. Ditches the corporate agency, life launches Klutch Sports, and suddenly he's way more than just an agent. He morphs into a brand architect, a puppet master for the media, and the single dude that scares the life out of NBA executives because he wields that LeBron-sized hammer. By the mid-2010s, Klutch Sports wasn't just an agency. It was the most feared empire in the league, mostly because they had the king in their corner. With LeBron backing him, the rulebook basically went out the window. The NCAA got so spooked, they literally invented the Rich Paul rule, demanding agents have a bachelor's degree just to stop him. And you know exactly how that played out. Since Paul didn't have that piece of paper, big surprise there, he and LeBron flexed their muscles and bullied the entire system into scrapping that rule immediately. But wait, it gets even messier. The streets have been talking for years about how he orchestrates moves to protect his superstars while leaving his smaller clients out in the cold. And he operates with a swagger that screams he knows he and LeBron are the real commissioners of this league. Jeff Teague didn't even hold back when he put them on blast on his podcast.
Anytime you say anything about Bron, people call you and say, hey man, you might want to chill. I know you got some funny stories and shit. So I know ain't nothing getting by. They whole camp. They run the league. They whole camp run the league.
That isn't just hyperbole. That is the whispers you hear from insiders when the microphones are off. Even heavy hitters like Charles Barkley have ripped into them, calling them bullies who hijack franchises and twist narratives in a way no one else would dare try.
You know how that group works. They try to trade their players to where they want to.
Talk about the Rich Paul Klutch.
Yes, they do it the way they want to. Anthony Davis.
It's not rocket science. For the last 20 years, LeBron's fingerprints have been all over every roster move, every firing, and every front office pivot. Just ask Russell Westbrook, David Blatt, or look at what happened to Frank Vogel. Players and coaches get shipped out or benched based entirely on the whims of the king and his agent. Meanwhile, LeBron sits back, flashes that grin, and plays innocent while his crew handles the dirty business. The pattern is undeniable. Look at the Nerlens Noel disaster. Word is Paul told him to reject a $70 million bag and then completely ghosted him. He watched Noel's stock crash and burn. That's exactly what I mean about the mid-level guys getting treated like sacrificial lambs. Then you have the Anthony Davis saga where his public trade demand slapped him with a $50,000 fine. Everybody knew Paul was pulling the strings on that media circus, but the league barely slapped his wrist because apparently LeBron's guy operates above the law. It blows my mind. And don't sleep on Mark Termini, the heavy hitter agent who sued Paul for nearly $5 million in unpaid fees. We're talking about fees from LeBron's own contracts. That lawsuit is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the shady dealings surrounding this guy. Even Bronny James landing on the Lakers was completely engineered by the dad and agent duo. Tell me how a kid who's a marginal prospect gets picked by his dad's team over guys who actually earned that roster spot. Exactly. So here's the bottom line. The Lakers are in a very dangerous place. They have the pieces on paper to be contenders, but the product on the floor is a mess. And all this noise surrounding Rich Paul isn't just a distraction. It is a cancer eating the organization from the inside out, and it's only going to fester if they don't cut it out. You cannot build a winning culture when your star's agent is out there treating teammates like disposable assets in a game of Monopoly. Rich Paul has been bulletproof for years because he stands in LeBron's massive shadow. But wake up and smell the coffee. The league is changing. Luka Dončić isn't just next up. He is the man now. People are realizing that the old script where LeBron dictates reality is running on fumes. The Lakers need to get a grip. They need to shield their guys, take back control of that locker room, and stop letting outside agendas wreck their chemistry. It is time to silence the noise, deal with the real issues regarding Reaves and Luka, and get back to playing actual basketball instead of playing politics. Look, Rich Paul and LeBron are playing a dangerous game. There is a razor-thin line between having pull and straight-up rigging the system, and these two are about 1 inch away from total corruption. If Paul keeps acting like a shadow GM, leaking rumors and stabbing teammates in the back, he is not just making enemies. He is taking a sledgehammer to the Kings' entire reputation. It is time to face the music. They can either fix this mess right now or keep fueling the drama while the rest of the league leaves them in the rearview mirror. So here's the real question keeping everyone up at night. Do they go all in on the LeBron and Paul power trip? Do they stick to a playbook that alienates guys like Reaves and Luka? Or do they finally check their egos at the door and stop the bleeding? Before the entire franchise goes up in flames,